Hey guys, Jill here, Total Training Experience. This week's video, I want to talk about trust. So last week, I talked a little bit about how to begin trusting yourself and not kind of continuing to put your plan, your experience, your faith, whatever you want to call it, into a diet book or to a training plan or to some expert or coach or whatever. So the whole reason why I created the Total Training Experience was to have an opportunity to give you guys the kind of guidance you would need over one full year to figure it out yourself. So I have my way, and my way is definitely not necessarily going to work for you, as is someone else's way. So the idea that you get a meal plan and then it's all good, that's just not the case, and you guys know that. So today I want to talk about trusting the process. And this is really hard because part of what I'm asking you to do is to give up a way of doing things that you've always done. So I'm asking you to kind of skirt the black and white on and off dieting that you've probably been used to. So especially around the new year, we see our friends and our family getting excited. They're probably buying all their supplements. They're buying all their, food. They're getting their Tupperwares out, and that stuff is great, except for the fact that we've done that. We've done that a million times, haven't we? We do that every January. We do that a couple times throughout the year. We have a new diet, a new program we're trying, and it's great. But the easiest thing in the world is diet jumping, going from one plan to the next. What's really, really hard is trusting the process, this process that we're trying to do, which is troubleshooting to find your specific formula for fat loss, for maintenance, for muscle building, whatever your goal is. That takes a lot of courage because the easiest thing is giving it over to someone else, right? So trusting yourself, but also trusting that the old way is always going to be there for you. So one of the things that really helped me when I was kind of making that shift, it took me, again, you guys know this, it took me about 3 years to fully make the shift from someone who always had a meal plan, always had I used to have my Excel spreadsheets, and I would have all my meals written out, and I'd have my exact workout times and all of this stuff, and I was super organized, and I liked the feeling of being organized because it made me feel in control. But really, it was like the opposite of control because I was being controlled by this very rigid and very strict approach that I was holding myself to. I didn't have the ability to stay flexible if something happened in life, right? So maybe that would work for the first couple weeks, and then all of a sudden I didn't even look at the Excel spreadsheet because I was like, I'm just not on it anymore, and I just didn't know how to eat anymore. So part of this, one thing that really helped me was always going to worst case scenario. Because as you guys know, I used to do about, an hour and a half to even sometimes 3 hours of cardio every single day. And the sad thing about that was towards the end of that, I was actually not getting any results. I looked the exact same, but I was still doing 2 hours of cardio a day. I felt that need to be on a program and have my food and my Tupperwares and do 2 hours of cardio. And I was doing so much exercise. But if someone had said to me, Jill, you can get the same results with less, I wouldn't have believed them because I so needed that time. I so needed those 2 hours of cardio to feel safe, even though I wasn't getting any results. So I started going to worst case scenario. I started asking myself, what if I cut my cardio back to an hour? Would I just gain a ton of weight? I really did. I thought I would. And what happened was, I always kept in the back of my mind, the 2 hours of cardio will always be there for me. If I need it, I can always just go right back to that, right? I'll gain a couple of pounds and I'll go right back to the cardio and I'll be back to maintaining the size I didn't even want to be anyway. But the key was always reminding myself that the old way will always be there for me. So why not at least try a new way, harness that courage to try something different, because I could always go back to my old kind of black and white dieting. That's always going to be there. So think about that in terms of trusting the process. What we've always done doesn't work. And even in the face of knowing that, it's safe, right? We'll always go to the familiar that doesn't work over something that we're not sure will work. Because we know that this doesn't work, but there's familiarity there. So there's certainty there, there's security there. So what I'm asking you guys to do is to start trusting a new process. And what that is, it's scary because it's new, it's different, and it's a more moderate approach. We tend to think that we can't get results with moderation. But picture this. Consider that we did things the old way, right? The all or nothing, and we get the new plan, we get the Tupperwares, we get the supplements, we get all that stuff, and we get the Excel spreadsheet, and we're excited to get started, right? So we maybe lose some weight initially because we kind of harness willpower and we're white knuckling our way through the meal plan. So maybe after a week or two, we're down, 5 pounds, maybe after a month, maybe we're down 7 or 8 pounds. But here's the thing, we know it's not sustainable. So even if you can do it for a month, even if you can do it for 2 months, eventually, because it hasn't become a habit, it's not easy, it's not something that is sustainable, it's not something that satisfies you. All these things we've been talking about for the last 4 months, it's none of those things. So eventually we're going to be off it again. And when we do, our metabolism, it shoots right back. Jade calls it a boomerang. That's what happens when we eat less and we exercise more. We go on these very strict regimens. We have a boomerang effect. Our metabolism doesn't like that and it won't continue responding. So what happens is, you guys know, you balloon back up, you gain that weight back. Any weight that you lost is going to be transient. So you add it all back and sometimes even more. And we do that maybe 2 or 3 times throughout one single year just to get to the next new year and either be the exact same, in the exact same position we were a year ago, or even maybe a little worse. Even maybe we have a little bit more weight to lose. So what I'm asking you instead is to try the slow and steady rate, to try that slow, steady process, even though it's not sexy, even though it's not a jump start, even though it's not like, oh, I got all this stuff and I'm gonna, get my Tupperwares, even if it's not that way, it's very anticlimactic, isn't it? It's basically like, oh, I eat moderately forever. And that's kind of where you have to be. And so the question always comes up, Jill, I know, you're all about moderation and you're all about preemptive cheat and stuff like that, but what if I want to lose weight, right? So you guys have heard me talk about maintenance and things like that. And first of all, I think maintaining your weight is success. It's very, very hard in the way our culture is around food to maintain your weight. So congratulations if you're at a point where you're maintaining fairly effortlessly. To me, that is success. But the question becomes, what if I do want to kind of slowly lose 5 or 10 pounds? And I think that's a great question, but first and foremost, you guys know this, you have got to get to a point where your HEC is in check, your hunger, energy, and cravings is in check. So all of this troubleshooting we've been doing the last 4 months, it's all about figuring out that way to get your HEC in check so that you're at a sustainable eating strategy at that point. The eating you're doing, the exercise you're doing is sustainable at that point. You need to get there first. Because here's the thing, you guys can do the strict stuff and lose the weight really quickly, but you know it's coming right back on. So get to a point where you're maintaining first, and then at that point, slowly make one single change at a time and watch what happens. So you have to be a little bit of a detective. You have to actually investigate what you're doing, but you can't do that with complete overhaul. Right? You can't do that with a complete overhaul where you're changing 10 things at once. You have to know strategically what one thing you're going to change. So for example, maybe you get to a point where your HEC is in check. And if you guys are there, I think a lot of you guys are, based on the feedback that you gave me recently, that's awesome. If your HEC is in check and you feel like you are a place where you can maintain fairly effortlessly, just hang out there for a little bit. Get your metabolism used to that maintenance. So once you're in a maintenance mode, you have a lot of leeway with your diet and you can pretty much maintain. Attainment, right? The difference between maintain and attain is very different. Attainment takes a little bit more work, but I don't want it to take so much work that you can't do it. So it would have to be one single change at a time. So it could be a change in your training regimen. Maybe you move from more bodybuilding style workouts to more metabolic conditioning, or maybe if you're doing a lot of Metcon, maybe you step back and you do maybe more sprint training or maybe more heavy weight training. So you can make one change in your training first, while maintaining your eating strategy and always checking in. Is my HEC in check? Where am I with my hunger, energy, and cravings? Can I do this effortlessly? Can I see myself eating this a year from now? That's where you always want to check in. And if your HEC is in check and it's sustainable and you know you don't feel deprived at all, remember, deprivation and satisfaction are the two things that I always want you looking out for. Am I satisfied or do I feel deprived? If you can answer that you are satisfied, then you know that you're doing something sustainable, because that's so, so key. So start there. Change something with your training. See how that goes. You can go back and look at the education around the carbohydrate tipping point. Maybe that's something that you investigate. So maybe you're at a point right now where you're eating a certain amount of carbohydrates, a certain amount of dietary fats. Remember, those are kind of the two variables. And then maybe you just take out a little bit of that carb and watch what happens. Does your HEC stay in check? And are you still doing something sustainable, and are you getting results? But those results are going to be slow, you guys. That's why trusting the process is key. Because once you get to the point that you realize that this investigative stuff kind of never ends, it's going to be kind of something you do forever. Once you get that around your head, once you wrap your head around that, it's kind of liberating because you go, oh, I don't ever need to arrive. I'm constantly just checking in. There's no urgency about it. I don't need to lose 20 pounds right now. I realize I have all this time to figure that out. And the process is such that, if you give yourself a year to figure out this process, a year seems like a long time, but when you consider for the last 5, 10, 15 years that many of us have been yo-yoing up and down to look the exact same year after year, what's 1 year in the grand scheme of things? So this process, while it's not sexy, it's a little bit anticlimactic, it's not all that fun to talk about, it really is where the sustainable change happens. So the process, remember, one thing, go to worst case scenario. It's not working for you, that cardio will always be there for you. You can always cut calories, right? That stuff is always going to be there. You can always track your food and get your Excel spreadsheet. But what I think that is going to happen is once you guys immerse yourself in this and you start playing around with it, many of you already have, you're never going to be able to go back to that. You're never going to be able to put your faith in a random plan or a strict, diet book or anything like that. You're just not going to be able to. But again, this is a process, right? So hopefully you guys are with me. We've been doing this for about 4 months now. It's super, super awesome. I've been getting great feedback from you guys. And I'm looking forward to continuing. We have a whole nother 8 months. We're going to get into some mindset stuff this year and all of that stuff. So it's been really fun. Again, if you have questions, info@jillfit.com, and I'll see you soon.